What you see on the screen is DataGraph version 5.1. Now there's one difference here in the user interface between the prior versions of DataGraph. Have you noticed what it is? Can you see it? Well, it's sort of a subtle change, but it's something that I thought was really important to add. And what it is over here in the top right-hand corner, you'll see that there is a new button that has the word hover with it. This allows you to turn on and off the hover functionality within the program. What is the hover, in case you are not familiar with this? Well, when it's turned on, like it is now, then we have this ability to get rid of that arrow there. We have this ability to move our mouse over our graph, and it does sort of what it says. It has a hover box that shows you precisely the location that it corresponds to and gives you the row number as well as the X location and the Y location. I find this really, really handy for exploring data. And so in this video, I'm going to show you an example that really, I think, highlights the benefit of the hover functionality for exploring data, and actually is going to compare the functionality in DataGraph with how there is a hover type of a box in Excel. And I think this really shows how snappy and precise the DataGraph version is. I'm also going to show you how the hover box changes when you use different commands, because different commands have different information, and it adjusts to show you relevant information depending on the graph. And finally, if you knew about the functionality, maybe you did or did not know, that you can also customize the hover box when you are using the points command. So that will be the last thing that I'm going to show you in this video. Now I'm going to show you how snappy and precise the hover functionality is within DataGraph, and we'll compare this to a similar functionality in Excel. The file that I'm using here is a file that you can access if you want to follow along. This is in the File, Online Examples. If you search on the word random, go into the Basic section, and you will go ahead and be able to open this file for yourself. This is kind of a cute file because it has some random numbers that are being generated and calculations being done. And if you want to kind of push the limit here, by default it has 300,000 plus rows in it. But I can go ahead and bring this easily up to 1 million. And you can see how snappy this is, going from 10 numbers to 1 million numbers. It's really quite fast. And again, when I have the hover over this, whether it's 10 numbers or 1 million numbers, again, it's very snappy, and I can pinpoint numbers very precisely. Let's compare this now to Excel. So I'm going to highlight these two columns. I can hold the Command key to select these individual X and Y columns. I'm going to copy them. So just edit, copy, bring these into an Excel file, and I'll just do Command V to paste these in and draw these in a similar way. So I will insert here a scatter with a line, which is equivalent to the plot command within DataGraph. And it takes a moment to go ahead and plot this data. I also noticed when I was preparing this that it's a little laggy with this many numbers. And this is not pushing the limit. This is not the 1 million numbers. This is the 300,000 or so numbers. And if I hover my mouse over points on the line, there is a box that pops up. It gives you the value that's associated with this, the Y value. But again, it lags a little bit. And if you're looking for a particular location on these lines, then it's difficult to really pinpoint the maximum, for example, at a given location. If I move my mouse too far away, then I get a different box. I have to be really on the line, and again, then it's hard to pinpoint. And even with small data sets, I found that there was this lagginess with the box that's there. So again, if we go back and compare this to the DataGraph version, you see very precise, really, really snappy. If you want to turn the hover off and not see that box, then here you have that ability to just click that button, and now I no longer have the hover activated. Now I want to show you how some of the other commands display information when you have the hover turned on. And for this demo, notice, if you want to follow along, that I've changed my how many variable down here to 100. So this is a much smaller set of numbers than going all the way up to 1,000,000. And the first thing that I want to do is to show a histogram and what that does. So I can highlight, for example, my Y column. I'm going to add a new graph and add a histogram. With the hover turned on, the histogram is going to show me the count for every bin. And you can see here, as I float through, I'll see that information. And another cute thing that I wanted to show you is if you wanted to see what numbers were in that particular bin, the histogram command also has this hover labels option where I can select, for example, the same column that is used for the values. And then when I hover over a bar, you will see all of the numbers that are used for that bar. Now, if you have more than more than the 100, or if you want to go all the way up again to 1,000,000 points, we can do that in the histogram quickly. But there's a limit to how many you can actually see per bin. I think at 100 points, it will cut it off. And even if you have this suggested to be shown, it's not going to show that. So that's why I wanted to start off again with a much smaller number. And actually, just to get here, I can just type in 100, and then you can see those numbers. All right, let's do another command. And this time I want to do the pivot command, where I'm going to select both the X and the Y. Click the pivot command to add that. And this will give you summary information for each range of X. And here it has a default range that it will pick based on our data. And again, I could have a lot more data here. It will adjust. But when I hover over with my mouse, it's going to show me the sum. So by default, you can see here the calculation that's done in the pivot command is the sum of the data that's in that group. Here it's being grouped by both the X value and then you're seeing the resulting Y values that are summed. I also can do things like show the mean and standard deviation. And when I do that, my value here also will update, and my hover command shows me both the mean and the standard deviation. Now, one thing I guess to note, if you were doing something like this, you can see how the pivot command here, now the numbers are getting really big. The default labels are getting a little too wide to be able to view them. So you can always change the pivot command from showing the x-axis on a categorical basis. Uncheck this button, and now you'll just see a plain number line. Okay, so that's the pivot command. And the last one that I wanted to show you is actually using the function command. So I'll add another new graph, and the function command is also here under the drop-down menu. We'll add the function command, and here now I can just type in a function in terms of X, and I can go ahead and change the range here. So now with my function, I just think this is really kind of an interesting functionality, that as I hover over, it will give me information about inflection points, roots, critical points, and if I have more than one function, so I'll make a copy of this one and paste it, and let's just do x divided by 10. So these two functions now intersect one another, and if I hover over that intersection point, it gives me the x and y values for that point. We're in the home stretch. This is my last example that I have for you today. If you'd like to follow along, you can actually open this file. This is a new file that we've uploaded to the online examples. In the basic section, scatter plot with labels. So you can click here to open this file. And what you'll see are a series of scatter graphs of data where this is the body size versus brain size for a select group of animals. And on the first graph, if you hover over a point, it shows you what we talked about before, the row number, the X value, and the Y value. But what I really want to know here as I'm exploring this data is what animal does this point pertain to? Where are we in this graph? What are these outlying points over here? Well, I can change the hover label, and there's instructions throughout this file annotating and showing you how we did this. But if you want to change the hover label, you can go into the points command and you'll see that there is a hover label option. Change it from automatic to the column that you would like to show, and then you will show a different hover label. So that's all there is to it. And you can see here are the humans, larger brain size compared to other animals of similar body size. We have these outlying points are actually extinct animals. These are dinosaurs. We have elephants at the top, the mouse at the bottom. So again, having that hover functionality customized here makes this data set much more interesting to explore. The second graph gives you instructions on this as well, and again has the hover being shown. The third graph shows you how to add labels, which is another option where you can select a column if you want to label each point. In this case, some of these get a little busy because we have overlapping points. So the third graph here, or the third option for this, is showing you a hybrid version where you show the labels for some points and not for others. And again, the instructions for how to do this are shown within the file itself. Okay, the last thing that I just wanted to point out to you is that turning the hover on and off, I've shown you how to do it here from our toolbar, but you can also do it from the view menu. You can go under here and you will see that there is a either show or hide hover information option where you toggle it on and off just like you do when you click on the toolbar shortcut. There is also a keyboard shortcut that's handy to know, Shift Command H. So if that's your preference to use keyboard shortcuts, that's another way to use the hover.